right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about you guys and your project. So let's first talk about the fact how I know you guys, right? So I know Leighton. We met because I was doing a church plant.
Yeah.
Right. And you were part of that whole team, I guess, at the time. You were pastoring somewhere.
Yeah. I was a pastor up in Montague and had been there for a couple of years. And I just really like seeing church plants get started. I had some experience when I was in seminary of doing a lot of training with church planting and thought I would do it myself, but it turned out I didn't. And so had a lot of knowledge. And so it was really fun to be able to come alongside and hear your vision and see how that would come about. And then crazy stuff happens in life and it didn't get all the way there.
Yeah, man, COVID hit. And then so what we were doing was a like house church style. I had gone to go train with Francis Chan at the time and learned how they were doing things up in San Francisco. And I started it. I had two groups going.
Yeah.
And then COVID hits, and then I had to get back into Trinity at the time, the mother church, and start doing, like, back then everybody was doing their drive-in services, all that kind of stuff, and then just stayed stuck there. And the pastor there left, and then I stayed for a little while longer. Then they found their permanent pastor, and yeah, never happened again. But
yeah, there was a lot of innovative things that we were trying and exploring during COVID, and then there was suddenly sometimes this rush to just jump back to what we were doing before. I think really we need to think about why were we innovating and why weren't we innovating before that?
Yes. Yeah, actually I was before it, like 2018, 2019, I had been talking to this place who I work for now, actually, Multiplication Network. I'm talking to them about how they need to be online. Right? You should put your stuff online. And they're like, no, we like the in-person thing. We're not going to plant churches teaching people online. And then, of course, in May of 2020, I got a call. Right? They're like, hey, we don't have anything online. And now we're stuck. So, the whole thing. How did we meet, Dave?
So when I came into Muskegon classes, I had moved down from the Upper Peninsula to be a pastor in Norton Shores. And I think you and I were doing some of our examinations around the same time because I was only ordained in 2018. And I remember you in that. I remember seeing your final examinations not long after my own. And I know you had come in, you had done pulpit supply once or twice for me while I was out on vacation. And just getting to know each other through the classes meetings and through the circles that we're getting closer and closer. I still feel like I'm getting to know people. I've been down here for 6-7 years now.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I probably should have done this up front, but why don't you introduce yourself and where you are, what you're doing, and then we do each other after that.
All right. Well, my name is Dave Celeskey, and we talked about I'm a pastor at Unity Reform, but I'm a doctoral student as well because I couldn't stick away from seminary. And the big thing I'm working on right now is this project called Redeem My Land, which is this living metaphor of redeeming and restoring land in Michigan that has been devastated, it's been polluted, it's been abandoned, it's been neglected. But through that work, both through people inside the formal church, the institutional church, and those who are outside of the faith, who are just interested in land restoration, creating this living metaphor of this is what redemption looks like for this land, but this is also what redemption looks like in our lives, and opening the door to explore that and build those relationships.
Leighton?
I just want to piggyback on that.
Yeah.
Because I think it's fantastic. That happens to be happening in my community. And I don't know if you know this or not, but prior to you doing that this year, I think last year, I started seeing, yard signs going up saying 60 years is long enough. This needs to get cleaned up. And it's referring to something else in town. But that community has a history of people not fully taking care of things. I mean, the city water goes way outside of the city because of another company that polluted the land. And so I think it just really resonates in that community in a wonderful way. So there's other places in that community that people want cleaned up. They really don't like having that in their environment. I mean, is it safe for your kids? Is it safe for other things? I think the one you're picking is great because it's hidden. You can't see it. It's just below the surface. And I can't wait to see how that all turns out.
What is that location exactly?
So right near the trailhead on the Montague Hart Rail Trail, years and years ago, it was a wetland. And then when the big lumber boom happened, when Chicago fire, and so a lot of lumber came out of the Montague White Lake area, the wetland got saturated with sawdust. They put a sawmill there, and they soaked it up, and then they put a foundry there and did some pollution that way. Then they put a train depot there, which is why there's a rail trail through the area. And then after that, when the depot went away, they made it the civic dump. People just bring their trash and bring their construction stuff, bring whatever down there. I remember I was talking with an old timer, and he was saying he used to go down there and shoot rats. Well, at some point in the 80s, the town decided they didn't want to have a dump in a touristy area. They wanted to have tourism. They wanted to have it look nice. So rather than move the trash, they kind of packed it down and just rolled sod over it.
Oh.
So yeah, so it looks nice on the surface, but you poke just below the surface, and what a great thing for the metaphor, right? Just below the surface that looks nice, it's a mess, it's a dump, it needs to get cleaned up.
What made you come up with this idea to begin with?
Yeah,
I mean, I know you're doing your doctoral thing,
yeah,
but like,
I'm going to say a flash of inspiration. We were in one of our first sessions in the doctoral meetings, and we were kind of talking preliminarily what ideas we might have, and I was like, I have no idea. I just know that I've always kind of had a heart for creation and this kind of stuff. And a moment before I had to go in front of people and talk, the name Redeem My Land and the whole thing just kind of flashed in front of me. I'm like, oh, and I kind of spit it all out, and they're like, that's awesome. I'm like, I think that's what I have to do now.
So do you attribute it to the Holy Spirit?
Yes. We're gonna give all the credit to the Holy Spirit on that one.
That's great. So, I mean, that's an interesting metaphor, right? And especially when you talk about that one piece of land that it's just below the surface. There's things going on, and we all have this facade, right? Can you get a little deeper into that?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we can push this metaphor farther and farther because, we're going to go in there and we're going to act as redeemers, and we're going to clean out this stuff that is preventing the land from being as it was created to be. Just like in our lives, we have this junk in us that's preventing us from being how God created us to be. We call it sin, so we'll call that sin for the metaphor. And then when we remove it, when we are redeemed, when we repent from our sin, we're not, 1 second, now we're perfect people. No, it's a lifelong process. It's something we're continually working on. Yes, we're redeemed, but we're not perfect, and we probably won't be until Christ returns. And same with this land, like it'll be years and years and years of working with it, and it might not ever look like how it was created to be. But again, that's part of the story. One of the things I like about this too is that it's scalable. We're working on about 1/3 of an acre, but you could tell this same story with a 10-foot by 10-foot plot of land. You could do it with acres and acres if you had the resources for it. And so part of my hope is throughout, whether it's my lifetime or not, that there's one of these projects that's happening in every county in Michigan.
And I bet every county probably has a place that needs cleaned up.
Oh, yeah. That won't be hard to find.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I don't even have to leave the county to find more places that need cleaned up in my town.
Yeah.
So is your idea that then people come in, like, I know they'll go to your website, that kind of thing, but they're able to then say, hey, I want to start one of these projects in my area?
Yeah. So this one that I'm working on now, this is, in the doctoral thesis and all this kind of stuff, this is building the template that when any kind of community of faith says, hey, we like that idea, we'd like to do that in our community, we'd like to use this as a way to reach out to people in our community that don't care what the church has to say about redemption, but they do care about what their neighborhood looks like. To be able to walk in with them and say, okay, here's the steps, here's how we start, and here's how we get awareness, and here's how we involve people who, may or may not have any relationship with the church whatsoever, but how you can build bridges and build friendships with them and center it on this project and the work that's being done. And from that, build relationships and be able to talk about the metaphor itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like it would be more of an indigenous thing within that area, right? So somebody within their neighborhood, let's say it's in Detroit or Muskegon Heights or things like that, that they would then take it on. Whatever churches that are in there should probably take that on, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's, I can only travel so far on any given thing. And, and that's the hope, is to get them started and to let them then run with it. And in every project, every piece of land is going to have unique challenges and unique aspects of the story that it tells, just like in our life. We're all unique people. And so part of our story and our redemption is going to be different. My story is going to be different than Leighton's story, going to be different than your story.
Yeah.
One of the things we even do with the land before we do any work is we do what we're calling a ecological inventory. So like we go in and we're using all the latest apps and stuff, to like identify every plant that's on the land and every bug that's on the land and every animal and bird call and everything that's there. And to identify like what belongs there, what's like a native species, what's something that's healthy for it, what isn't there that shouldn't be there, even something that might look good, but really is a problem, and to be able to identify those and to say, okay, well, when we clean up this land, or in this case, when we excavate this land, what do we want to keep? Just like in your life, when you're redeemed, let's say you came to Christ later in life and you were a beautiful musician. Well, you don't just scrub that away, right? There's certain parts of your personality in your life you want to hold on to.
Absolutely.
And so with all of these land projects, we want to say, okay, hey, there is great rocks here, or a great, grove of this kind of tree, or, this is the only place where this certain bug lives, and what can we do to save that?
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of people always, especially when new believers come to faith and they're like, you're in this world, but you're not of this world. And so you need to let it all go away kind of thing. I like to say, well, but I'm still in this world. How am I going to connect with people in this world if I shut myself away, right, from everything else? And so I do look at that. There were some pieces of me that I was like a musician. I was like a filmmaker kind of thing. And you can see in here, I have like posters everywhere and stuff like that. But now my thoughts and all these things are geared more towards Christian things, but those same talents and stuff, right? Yeah. So that could be the same.
For sure.
Keep those bugs in the right place.
Yeah. Keep the right bugs.
Keep the right bugs. Yeah.
What's interesting too is I think you're probably going to be better off by having someone in the community that's committed to it for two things, which I know we've chatted about this. The going through from start to being able to redeem the land is a process that people won't see a whole lot of stuff going on. So you have to have an indigenous community member committed to that, that's going to go through that whole process of, this took 2 years to get to the starting line of, now we can fundraise and now we can do other stuff and we can do that. But also another piece you talked about is the long term afterwards of we've done the hard work of removing the stuff that's not supposed to be there, but there still is going to be healing time that needs to happen for this land, and then protection that needs to be there so it doesn't have anyone else come in and do something similar and abuse the land again.
Yeah.
Speaking of, how are you going to get people to realize they shouldn't be doing that there anymore?
Yeah. That's, again, land by land, that's a whole different thing. But one thing I want to attribute to the, Montague as a city. I've been talking with Jeff Ock, the city manager out there, and I think he speaks for the rest of the civil servants out there, is they recognize what choices they had made years ago and generations ago. And at the time, it probably felt like the right choice. At the time, it felt like, well, this is what we need to do for work. At the time, this is what we need to do to keep this community alive through whatever is going on. But they don't try to hide the past, but how do we move past it? How do we move forward? What choices do we make today for tomorrow and for the future? And I think that's a really mature way to take it, and not try to be defensive about what happened, but to say, all right, yeah, that was a problem. How do we fix it? And what can we do?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. How did you get to where, assuming you had to go to the city so they can allow, because it's their land, right?
So, yeah, it's actually, we got some weird layers here. So the city came to me. The way that this particular one worked out is I was able to talk about this project at a classes meeting that happened to be at a church in the city of Montague. And the sound guy happens to be also, for the church, happens to also be the city manager. And so when he heard me talk about this project, he's like, oh, we got to talk. And he's like, we've got some land that might be perfect for what you're talking about here. And the way it works out, it's actually the state owns the land because it's part of the rail trail, which is part of a state park. And the state owns it, but they let the city operate it. And then the city can decide what happens with it. So somewhere in the layer here, it's where Redeem My Land is. And so we're, one of the things we had to learn is, well, how do you work with city governments, and how do you work with state governments, and how do you navigate those waters from a religious aspect, from a nonprofit aspect, from a just getting work done. There's a certain amount of bureaucracy that just inherently comes when you've got that many layers of government. And it's been a great process because inside all of those institutions are just people. And it's people who care and people who want to do good. They don't go into that line of work unless they want to do good. And so it's been actually really joyful to work with.
Where is there obviously in this sense it worked out, right? Because you happen to be at the church. Mm-hmm. So was there a lot of like if we start looking into going into other cities, do you think that there should be a very honest, upfront conversation of this is what we believe and this is why we're doing it?
Yeah.
Also, right?
Yeah. I don't think it should be a bait and switch, where it's it come in, it's a purely ecological project. Like, oh yeah, and by the way, we also believe that. No, I think that's up front. But at the same time, it's not overly preachy off the get-go. Sure. We say at the forefront, this is our aim. This is why, but this is our aim, and this is what we're going to do.
Okay, yeah. It's super interesting how this is going to play out, right? Like, I'm super interested in seeing how it works out there and how, because it's a long game, really, right? So, speaking of you mentioned funding earlier. How are you doing that?
Yeah. So we just acquired our 501c3, which is opening up some doors for us. Because we are religious in nature, there's certain grants and things that are just off the table. Whatever institution that puts the grant out there and they hear that you're a religious organization, they're like, no, we're not funding that no matter what it is. But it does open up other doors. It's such a weird niche because even in the church, when you mention environmental things in the church or ecological things in the church, there's some people in the church that raise red flags and say this is left leaning, this is fluffy, this is whatever, and they write you off. But somewhere in that, we're finding our niche of people who both see it for what it is for faith, who see it what it is for creation care, and they see it as something that they value as well and they resonate with. Right now, we're about 25% funded for this project. And so we're going to be able to start the actual work this summer, if not finish it. It's okay with me that we start it and don't finish it because that's going to just give more visibility. People are going to see what's actually going on beneath that surface and why we're doing it. And so instead of doing it all in one blast and making it maybe over 2 summers, that might actually encourage more people to come alongside who wouldn't have done so before. So I'm okay with the slow game about it. The trash ain't going anywhere.
Right. Why do you think that is, that they would look at it and say that's a little left leaning?
Oh,
well, I think that in some places, the church that is conservative has just abandoned thoughts about creation. And we've moved it to everything is political. And so we go with what our political party might be thinking about things. So if my political party is right-leaning and then the other side that's left-leaning is doing all of these environmental things, then everything environmental must be left-leaning. Therefore, it must not be what I should be in favor of. Rather than, I think, having a biblical understanding instead of a political understanding. And I'm sure some of these you'll agree with, you might word it differently than me, but wasn't in creation Adam and Eve given stewardship over the whole earth? And we don't use stewardship language often enough, because I, as a parent, I am steward over my kids until they're adults, and now they're on their own. I stewarded them until they were able to go and move out of the house. Well, the creation's still here. So we either are doing a good job of being a steward of it, or we're doing a bad job of being a steward of it. And you talked about, in the past, maybe we made decisions based on knowledge and information. Maybe we made some bad decisions. As a grandparent, I think I'll do a much better job with my grandkids than I did with my parent or with my kids, because I was operating under the knowledge and understanding I had. Don't have any grandkids yet. Don't know when that's going to happen, but I feel like I have much more knowledge and wisdom and understanding to be a good one than I was, because I can tell you the mistakes I made as a parent. And I think it's much better to be thinking about, we need to be stewards of our land. We need to be stewards of creation. We need to be stewards. I really love the language of being a steward of things, because then I can think about everything I have. So I need to be a steward of the education that I've received, because I live in a country where I got to go to seminary, and I have friends that are overseas that will never get to go to seminary. So am I stewarding the education I got? Am I stewarding the resources I got? Am I stewarding the planet around me? I mean, there's so many different ways to apply that. And I think that applies to creation, and the church doesn't usually use that language.
No. I think somewhere else where the church falls short is theologically, we have this idea of escaping from the world. Mm-hmm. We sing hymns like "I'll Fly Away," and this idea of like, well, who cares what's going to happen to the earth because it's just going to burn. Well, the idea, though, I mean, biblically, is new heaven and new earth. It's a redemption of this world and not just people, but all the parts of creation. And so the way that we handle it, the way that we do, this will be the stuff that gets redeemed totally in the end. And I think when you have a mindset that, new heaven, new earth isn't somewhere far away out there, but it's going to be redeemed here. Right. Jesus comes back here, heaven comes down here. It makes you consider the doormat a little bit more, the welcome a little bit more.
What do you think of the idea that in a lot of things, the reason that sometimes government takes over these things is because the church stopped doing them, right? So let's say, we're supposed to be feeding the hungry and clothing the naked and those kinds of things. And then the church slowly stopped doing that. And then the government starts taking over that. And I find it funny that a lot of people will be like, I don't want the government spending my money on X, Y, Z. Right. Except you were supposed to do it anyway in the church. Mm-hmm. So you would have done it anyway with your tithes and offerings, if that makes sense. Or you should be anyway.
Yeah. I think there's something valid what you're talking about. What I've been trying to think about is, which happened first? Did the church stop doing these things for their neighbors? Did they stop doing these for their community? And then the government stepped in? Or was it the other way around? I'm not sure. And I know we can look at it historically and say, oh, the Great Depression, and that led to some of these things. Yeah, but I think we need to go back another 100 years before that. We need to go back another 200 before that. How were we caring for our friends, our neighbors down the street? I think it's much harder in a modern society because we are so transient and we have such access to being transient. We're all sitting in a town that none of us grew up in.
Right.
So right there, whether I grew up in the state or not, I have lived in many other states. I'm very transient. And where I live right now, I've lived there for 7 years, longest I've lived anywhere in my life. I mean, I'm poster child for transient, and I finally decided I don't want to move again, at least not for a while. So I think that plays into it too, is how do we see each other down the street? Is my responsibility, my community, my care of everyone else because you're created in the image of God, or no, you're not my friend, you're not my family member, you're a stranger, and I don't have to think about you at all. I don't know.
Yeah. That's a deep thought.
It gets pretty deep because you start looking at, if only we could all just learn how to touch or share love on our ecosystem, right? Our circles.
Exactly.
Then the whole world could change, right? Even those that are not in the Christian realm, right? If they were good and kind to all the people in their immediate friendships and that kind of thing, imagine what could even happen, right? You were going to say? Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say that was what I was thinking and leaning towards is that oikos, the knit system that you are a part of. That's where we should be caring for one another. But a lot of people don't have those anymore.
Yeah.
You don't have those anymore. Since the Industrial Revolution, people were going to the cities. People are, migrating. You don't have grandma and grandpa when you migrate always. They're gone. You don't have brothers and sisters and uncles that are around that are part of the family. You might be able to, within a church community, have that, but then we've got how many churches in town? So there's how many different small systems, and we're not interconnected. So when you have a need, and I'm just going to speak of one that I just actually had someone who said, hey, can we help with this situation? Friend of mine just had a transmission that just went out. This is all going to happen, and I don't know what to do, but they need this or whatever. Can you help? And anyway, I'm like, yeah, let's work on it. Let's figure out how to help. And so I got to figure that out this week, and what we can do and help, and how much it's going to be, and all those kinds of things. That should be our inclination. And the person who's asking me, just to let you know, by the way, is a former Satanist. And so them asking me and saying, shouldn't we do something as a response, I just love that, because like, you now understand what it means to love others. You now understand what it means to be thinking about other people and loving your neighbor as yourself. They get it.
Yeah. And speaking of those kinds of systems, you're working on something, right? Also in Montague.
Yeah, also
right?
in Montague. Didn't introduce myself. Leighton Seys. But I do a lot of online ministry.
I've been saying your last name wrong all my life.
I have to.
Size.
Like, what size shoe do you have? That's
because it's spelled S-E-Y.
It's spelled S-E-Y-S. Yes. And if you go further back, it used to be spelled S-I-A-S, which doesn't help any. But anyway, I usually tell people my name rhymes with Satan lies, and they usually can remember my name then. Or yes, I know. I've been saying that since I was a kid, and so I've been saying that way longer than
it's one of the bugs you kept.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, this is mine. I'm not getting rid of that. I've been saying, my name rhymes with Satan lies for a long time. My wife just cringes when I say that. It's like I go into a church and going to introduce myself. I'm doing the sermon and I'm preaching, and it's the first time that the congregation's meeting me, and I'll say that. She's like, "Why do you do that?" I'm like, "They'll remember my name, won't they?"
Yeah.
I just imagine some kid jump roping somewhere and making some nursery rhyme out of that.
Oh, yeah.
Went to church with Leighton Seys, and he told us how Satan.
Oh, man. That's awesome. That's so awesome. I need to get a meme of that somewhere. I was going to say, otherwise, if you can't remember that, online, I go by flatcapdapperpastor. So I'm all over on their Twitch, on the socials, doing things. And connecting with people, which is interesting because I stepped away from what I was doing at the church. I was working part-time, helping churches in transition, and I started streaming on Twitch and doing things there. So I'm working with a lot of different organizations on there. We can talk about that if you want to, or we can just leave that aside. But as I was doing stuff digitally, I was getting connected with people globally. And it's been fascinating to be able to not just say, well, here's my church tradition and here's my local regional thing, is to be able to see and hear what people are doing globally. And so one of those things that I kept running into in several different places is just the BLESS acronym. And the BLESS acronym, there's nothing special about it. It's what it is. It's really just a way, I think, to live your life.
Can you say it for people that might not know?
I was just going to.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah, I wasn't going to just assume everyone would know, but some people talk about, it's an evangelism strategy. And I don't want to narrow it down to that, because then it feels like I am doing something to get you to do something. And I see it as much more of how I live my life. And in the fact of B is, which this would be like, I didn't create it, or I might not have used this BLESS acronym, but I really like it. It's begin with prayer. I'm like, well, then why don't you start with prayer instead of start with begin with prayer? But anyway, it's begin with prayer. And so when you're doing that, this is designed like, hey, I want to pray for my neighbors next door. Great. So pray for your neighbors. You need to know their name. You need to know what's going on in their life. So you pray for them. Well, I'm trying to do that for the community. And I'll come back to what I'm doing after I go through all of it. So begin with prayer and then listen. So you listen to the Holy Spirit and you listen to the neighbor, or you listen to whoever it is. so that you know what to pray for. So someone just says, oh man, you can't believe what just happened to me. My tire burst when I was driving. I got to do this. Great. Can I pray for you about that? So I'm like, this is going on at work. Hey, great. Can I pray for you about that? The thing is, most people will accept prayer no matter if they believe in God or not.
Yep.
It's one of those things like, well, that can't hurt, so go ahead. But that's also an opening to connect with people. It also shows you're invested in a relationship with them when you offer to pray for them. So regardless of religion, regardless of no religion, most people are willing to accept prayer. So it is begin with prayer, listen, and then eat. Now, I do a lot of stuff online, and so you can't always eat with people, but you can expand that into enjoyed shared experiences if you're not able to physically get together with people. But eat. How many meals do you eat a week? Most people eat 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, throw in a few snacks in there, throw going out for coffee or going out for a beer, whatever it is. Let's just say you've got 30 chances to sit down with someone in a week.
Yeah.
Can you do that twice? That's pretty easy to do. Eat with someone, share an experience. So it's like, hey, maybe you do more than one person at a time. You get together, whatever. Right now, we all have a drink in our hand. So, we're eating together on some level. And then the first S is serve. So I might find out that one of your needs is you've got no one to babysit. I can serve you. I might find out you're really busy. You just moved into the neighborhood and you don't have a lawnmower and you don't have the money and I can go mow your lawn. I can serve you because I listened to you and I engaged with you and I've been eating with you. And so these stories come out of what's going on in your life. So you begin with prayer, you listen, you eat, you serve, and then you share your story. You share your story about Jesus. Now, it doesn't mean your conversion story. Anything like, hey, this was going on in my life. I was really struggling with this, and I was praying, and this happened. And after this happened, this is what my life has been like. So it doesn't have to be, my conversion story, which is usually when we think evangelism is about conversion story. And so I'm using the BLESS acronym for everything that I'm doing. And I'd been really just praying about my community. Like, where do I do something in the community? During COVID, I looked into, do I start a business? And I do the route of being a business person in the community that's a Christian, that's, reaching out and blessing people and doing that. Doors just didn't open up. They didn't. I actually was looking into doing a winery at one point, having my kids run an Airbnb. We were going down that road. I looked at several other things like, nope, that's not it. So I was at an event last year, and I'd known the BLESS acronym. I've been studying that, and I've been already starting it. And during COVID, my sons were selling soap at the local artisan market in Montague, which had started up. But boy, that was really fun. I loved being down there. I was a guy that's like, hey, come on in. You got masks on. You can come in. You can get free smells, and you could touch everything because you couldn't do anything. And little kids are like, I can take my mask off and I can smell and I can do whatever you want.
Mom and dad are just looking at you like,
yeah. And I tell you what, I got like everybody inside there, and then the soap sold itself. I didn't need to do anything else. I wasn't ringing up sales. No, I'm not doing that. I'm the get you in here. And if you know what, the dads sometimes wouldn't go in, I'd stand outside and just talk with them. Yeah. So as I was at an event just talking about kind of like we have the Third Coast Collective, an event similar to that, and we're talking about how do we do micro expressions in our community to do things. And I just felt the Holy Spirit saying to me, hey, how about you go pray with your community? You can do that. They were talking about praying for the prisons, and I'm like, man, I'm not going to work in the prison stuff. God hasn't called me there. And the Holy Spirit's like, yeah, how about you just set up a prayer booth? And so I got on the horn and I talked to the city manager, Jeff Ock again, by the way. And I said,
the sound guy.
Yeah, the sound guy. Yeah, also the sound guy at the former church I was at. And I said, hey, I have this idea. I need to sit down and talk with you. So I didn't know if, who oversaw all of the artisan market, whether they would say, yeah, this is great. Come in and set up a prayer booth. We're trying to sell stuff. I didn't want to take anybody's spot, away, but I really felt like I could go set up and do that. And so that's the plan. Open Mother's Day weekend, and I'll be down there, and I'll be, praying with everybody in the artisan market, praying with everybody who comes in, listening to them, looking for opportunities to have shared experiences, eating with them. If someone in the marketplace needs something, trying to serve them. And when they ask me, take and share, why am I doing this? What does Jesus mean to me? Why would I even care about everyone else? So that's kind of what that started as, was just saying, I want to pray for my community. I want to do something that helps my community, and I can go pray with them because I have that ability to do that. And God said, go do it. So, trying to think, so I didn't plan on this. It then evolved into becoming a nonprofit. And so you went the route of being a religious nonprofit. I'm going to go on the other side of that and not be a religious nonprofit, because I don't know, with some of the stuff I plan to do or hope this multiplies, whether or not every single place being a religious nonprofit would be a barrier to going into a marketplace, because they're like, oh, well, your whole thing is going to be a bait and switch of you're trying to evangelize people. No, if somebody doesn't come and ask for prayer, I'm not knocking people down saying, can I pray for you? If I spend time listening to you, it's because you want to spend time telling me. If you want to eat with me, it's because you want to do that. If I want to serve you, it's because it's an opportunity to do that. If I share my story, it's because you asked me to share my story. And then the other thing is if I share my story and you say, well, that's really weird. I know you're weird because you wear those hats and whatever else.
I mean, you look dapper.
I know. Well, yes. I think it's the hat that makes you dapper. So it's not me, it's the hat. But yeah. So it's really like, I want to go in that direction, and I'm hoping also to figure out best practices. So if someone else wants to start this in their own community, do the same kind of things. They don't have to go to the marketplace. Maybe they have another place they want to go do that.
So what's the idea that you're hoping that it's just going to say whatever, like, what are you calling it? Like, is there going to be like a logo there? And what's the draw for the people to actually walk up and start talking to you? Like, if you're not, hey, how's it going?
Exactly. So what's the draw? I'm going to have a sign that just, kind of says prayer is available. And it's called Bless White Lake because I'm in White Lake, but the nonprofit is going to be called Bless Community, so that if you go in another community, you're not like, why is Bless White Lake here? We're not White Lake. We're some other place. So that's the bigger organization. But on the local level, Bless White Lake, it's White Lake because the whole community, both sides of White Lake, Montague and Whitehall, we call it that. It's the White Lake area. And so the bridge that goes across the river is the bridge that binds us together. It's not the river that separates us. But why would people want to come in? I'm sitting there, and maybe their life is busy, and they don't have something or someone else to talk to, or the person with them is busy off shopping or doing something else, or maybe they just need prayer. So I'm going to make myself available with that. I'm still working through all the details. One of the things I'm envisioning is kind of like we've got these panels behind us, is having a panel up with just a bunch of prayers tacked on the board, or a bunch of blessings. Need one, take one. Just a 3x5 card with a blessing printed on it. Take it, pray it. Yeah. Prayer, take it, pray it. Whatever that is. Or hey, you need to have a prayer request. You can put it in the bin, or you can put it up there, and if other people see it, they might pray for it too. So you can do that. So it's really going to be about building relationships with people, which is like, well, how do you do that in an artisan market where people come in and out? Well, there's kind of 3 levels of that, because I'm in the artisan market. I'll get to know all the people there. So that'll be, I think, a natural thing that'll just develop, is relationships with all the other vendors. The other thing is there are regulars. Like when I was down there selling, so there are people like, oh man, I saw you last week and you're here again. Oh, it's so good to see you. Hey, I haven't seen you in 2 weeks. Hey, you were saying something about this. What's going on? So it's going to be those ongoing long-term relationships that'll develop. The third level will be the out-of-town visitors. And so they might come in and it's a one-time thing, but a lot of visitors are annual. So I'm hoping to move some of this to an online community as well, to reach those people far away who maybe they live in Lansing or maybe they live in Saginaw and they come every year. How do I stay connected with them? Because if they ask a prayer request, they need to know how to send me an answer with, hey, God did this, or hey, I have a new one that's going on. So that's kind of my hope is, people will stop because I'm there along the path, and it's easier to stop and talk to someone that's sitting there. And also they're going to go, what in the world does this thing mean? Bless White Lake. Well, come on in. Let me tell you about it. I'd love to pray with you, find out if anything's going on in your life that you need prayer for. If not, just tell me what's going on. That's great. Let's praise God for that.
It's interesting that we're talking about like our personal ecosystems, and you mentioned there's not a lot of opportunities where that is happening. Seems like you're creating them for yourself.
That is precisely what I'm trying to do. Create it for myself, but not for a selfish reason. Yeah. Because I think that was one of the things that I saw a lot of, and I think that's, what was the stats that just came out? I know somebody just had stats that came out on loneliness. I want to say 67%, I think is what the number was talking about, of people that identify themselves as lonely. It was parents, that's what it was. 67% of parents identify themselves as lonely. They have no friends to go do something with. 67% of parents in your community probably feel the exact same way. They're so busy with their kids, they're so busy with work, they're so busy with other things, they don't have a friend that they can just call and go hang out with.
Yeah, I mean, well, that resonates with me. I'm so busy, I do all sorts of stuff, and then I go home and hang out with the wife way too late at night, binge something, and then move on. And then there's like no one, like I don't hang out with other guys or whatever, you know what I mean? And that's true. It's true. Like you don't find that a lot, and you find yourself trying to figure it out. I think, and it's funny because I've thought this for a while, but then just the other day I was listening to a podcast and they said the same thing, is that's probably why podcasts became a thing. Because I don't have anybody to have a conversation with, so I'll listen to that one. I'll listen to their conversation.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, like maybe that's what it is happening, right, in our society. So I remember being young, and we're talking a little bit about movies. I was in a film school in Santa Fe, New Mexico, just for like a semester, and then we would all go watch movies or whatever. But there was a place, I can't remember the name of the place. It was Denny's style, and everybody hung out there like late at night.
Right.
So we would have all these conversations. There was all this going on.
Yeah, it's the eat, the enjoyed shared experiences, or eat. Yeah, it's. I don't know. I don't want to pick on guys for a minute, but it's like we need to bond over an activity. If we're not doing an activity, we're not hanging out. We're not just having a conversation. So why do guys go fishing? Well, catch fish, you think, but well, just as much to talk.
Yeah, hang out.
Yeah.
Like and I had that when I was younger, and I find myself like
longing.
Who am I going to talk to about this movie I just watched? Because my wife doesn't like watching movies as much as I do, and I watch everything. So who am I going to talk to about this? And I used to have a best friend who passed away in like 2017, and so like we were friends since we were like 16 years old and stuff like that. So like that was it. Yeah. Like I have, it's like in the movie Stand By Me. You don't have friends like you had when you're in middle school and high school. And then once they're gone, they're gone. It's hard to, as an adult, to figure out how do you make another friend.
Yeah.
How do I make time for this other guy now to go hang out with? And it's true, but it's part of who we should be.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and there's also the level of, if I have responsibilities at home with my wife and I want to spend time with her and my kids and I want to spend time with them, I don't want to neglect those relationships to go foster a new one. And so I think some of the things that we haven't maybe done well, there's community events that happen all the time, right? I mean, your community probably has them. Mine does. There's big things going on. I don't get invited to them. I might run into people down there that I know, but nobody's calling me up and saying, hey, I'm planning on going to this. I know you enjoy this. Why don't you come with me? And that's, I think, some of the stuff that we need to be thinking about and creating within that is the intentionality of inviting others into something with us. Instead of just, well, there's a concert down at the, every Tuesday night at the band shell. So I'm going to go down and listen to the concert because I like music. I need to meet somebody that I can invite that wants to go down there. Or They just want to hang out with me, so they'll go there anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And I found it hard to figure out. I wasn't always like that, right? It's like, growing up, I'm like Gen X, and I'm like, if you want to come, come. If you don't. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm going, right? So to figure out and really actually like what you're saying, right?
Right.
Start with prayer and then start listening to them, and because then otherwise I wouldn't know if they enjoy that. Right. Like to open up those opportunities to do that kind of thing.
Well,
right?
and the other thing too is it's not like you need to go find and do something that you don't like to join people in doing something. No, take what you enjoy and invite people into what you enjoy. You'll find people you enjoy. We get disc golf courses around too. You like disc golf? Go start hanging out there. Go start, being there. Go join the league. But not only that, who do you know that enjoys it? And when can you set up a time to do that with them?
Yeah.
I think part of the hard thing in that is, and I don't know if you guys feel the same, you work and there's family and there's extracurricular stuff that you commit yourself to because people ask you to do things and you're like, yep, I'll do, all this. And so then always the idea of making another appointment or making another time or making another plan sometimes feels like another burden.
Oh, yes.
I know that's how I feel sometimes. And so I've got like the most introverted hobby that actually recharges me. I take recycled items and I make miniature terrain for people who do wargaming and stuff.
Well, how do you find people that like that too?
Oh yeah. So I become a vendor.
You listen to a podcast on it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. There's surprisingly a lot of middle-aged men out there who who like to do these games. So and so for them, rather than spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on these miniature dioramas that they move their pieces around, I do it out of egg cartons and foam and all different things.
Cool.
And for me that's relaxing. But I have made friends through that, through this hobby. Yeah. I've gone to different, like Comic-Con, Grand Con, those kind of things, and different people walk by, and they say, hey, what you like to do is what I like to do. Right. And so like, we don't ever, get together and do it together, but we do often talk about it and email with each other and back and forth and recognize each other when we see each other out.
I think that's one of the, you mentioned emailing and messaging back and forth. I don't think that, like, for instance, if you just take the average person sitting in a pew of a church, how many contacts do they have between Sundays? I mean, if they're regular every Sunday, which not everyone is anymore, it's usually twice a month as a regular. But let's just say that in a week time, Monday to Saturday, how many times did they touch with someone else in the church? They're isolated. They're alone. They're not connecting. Unless they are best friends with people that they hang out with outside of church, they're not hanging out because they're in the church. Even if you're attending the one thing you do enjoy together, there still is touch points you can connect with other people. So you're saying, hey, you made something. Just send a picture. Dude, I made the coolest thing. Check this out. Mm-hmm. I happen to like koi. I have a koi pond. This is just a really weird hobby that happened by accident, which my wife asked me all the time. How much are those 5 goldfish costing me now? Yeah. Because that's how it started. 5 goldfish for a children's message that now is cameras and pond filters and all kinds of stuff. But I just moved. So I had koi in my pond for a couple of years. They had eggs last fall. So I brought them in, had them in the aquarium, and they've been getting bigger. And I've been waiting because a couple of them are monsters now. They're about 8-9 inches long. And they're all of them are the same age, but there's some that are only 3 inches long. And it's because like the 2 big boys are eating everything in the tank and they don't save anything. It's like, I got to get you out of there. So I just migrated them to my pond. I just shared a clip, a little video here. I shared it with the people I knew would appreciate it. Hey, yeah. I just moved my fish here. Check it out. And they're like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I do work with Multiplication Network, right? And I do church planting everywhere. And tomorrow, I'm leaving to go to Orlando to the International Christian Film Festival because there's a film that I helped produce and it's going to be showing there. And so I was telling that to my boss in Multiplication Network, hey, I'm going to be gone, right? I'm going to do this. And it never occurred to me, but he said, hey, you should share that with our group. They would love to hear about that. And I'm like, why? I didn't think about it. And also there was that thing, so that's my job. Should I be telling them that I'm taking time off to do another, the idea? But he's like, no, share it. They would like to hear about that, they probably would like to watch it or, things like that. And it never doesn't occur to me. Doesn't occur to me.
Yeah. I mean, I share about koi, and two of you might go, yeah, whatever. I'm never going to talk to you again about that unless you bring it up.
He's a nerd.
Yeah. But if all of a sudden it was like, oh my goodness, you do too?
Yeah.
Now we just went to a deeper level of relationship.
Yeah. So you're finding connection.
Yeah. So you were talking about the movie thing the other day, and with me, and I said, oh, I know who I need to connect you to.
Yeah.
Who is at a church, who is doing film, who's doing movies. You need to get connected. So sometimes you share something and somebody resonates with you, and sometimes you share something and they know someone that they should connect you with. Mm-hmm. And so,
yeah, that's happened a lot in the Montague project for Redeem My Land stuff, because I would talk to someone.
Oh, yes.
And often in the conversation, the very next thing is, have you talked to so-and-so? You need to talk to so-and-so. Here's their number.
Absolutely,
you need to meet this person. You need to meet that person.
Well, that's actually kind of one of the questions I was going to ask you. How are you getting the word out about it? And I guess it's like that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people talk to this person.
Yeah, it's been an interesting mishmash of a lot of word of mouth, a lot of conversations, things like this. But then sit down and meet with people. Kind of some of the more formal ways I've been trying to do it. We've done flyers, Facebook posts, social media kind of things, and trying to promote it that way to people who aren't in any of the circles that I know, but. There's algorithms out there like, hey, like we're doing a fundraiser race this weekend.
I was going to say, we haven't mentioned that yet.
And so, one of the things that I can look for and say, okay, well, what kind of running clubs are there? And so Wednesday, I'm going to the Run Muskegon Club, and I'm going to go run 5 miles with them, but they're giving me time to present with the run club, about what this is and it's a race. So it's common interest. And so we intersect on that level and just kind of finding the places and the areas where we would intersect.
Yeah. And then other people who get excited about, like, I'm really excited about this race. I got flyers from you, and I was going around town to say, where do I hang these? And I went, where people run is at the gym. I'm going to hang it up. I went and talked to, and I know the gym owner, talked with him about it. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to put that right on the office wall so people will see it instead of the normal place where we hang stuff, because it's going to be on the office wall and people will see it when they come to talk to me. So it's going to be right here. And I'm like, yeah, there's a place where I know people that are going in there. I don't know if they like to run, but they do run.
They have to run.
Yeah.
It's funny because I had seen when you sent it out through email, and I looked at it and I was like, oh, I want to do that because I'm trying to train for a Spartan race too. Point. So I'm like, oh, that'll be another run I do, but now I'm going to be out of town for it, right? So yesterday, after we had met at the Third Coast thing, I went home and I was telling my wife, oh, who I'm going to talk to is David. They're doing the Redeem My Land. It turns out she had already heard all about it and she was going to sign up. I didn't even mention it to her. So she had heard somewhere. I don't even know where, but she's like, oh yeah, I wanted to sign up for that. And yeah.
Well, tell her she better.
I know, right?
Spots are limited. They really are. You better get in now.
Yeah. Where it's redeemmyland.com. Is that what it is?
Redeemmyland.org is the website, and my is in Michigan. So redeemmyland.org. And then we're calling the fundraising Redeem My Run. So it's catchy.
I like it. But
you have to redeem my run because I don't do it very well. I'm working on it.
Yeah, so it'll be there's a 5K, which is run or a walk, and a half marathon. And the half marathon's fun. So if you're listening to this and you're a runner, it's a mixture of bike trail, back roads, and trail. And so there'll be some stuff through a nature preserve, some stuff on the rail trail, some stuff on back roads. So just when you're getting tired of one kind of road that you're running on, it'll switch into the next kind.
So that doesn't sound good to me at all. You're not selling me over here. I'm waiting for the Redeem My Ride.
Yeah.
That's
my ride. Yeah.
Yes. I'm a road bike. So, get out on the road bike. Let's go.
Hey, maybe like I said, this thing, it'll be a template that goes from county to county, place to place. And other places will have to come up with their own ideas for fundraisers.
Yep.
Sneak peek, we might looking to do a haunted trail in October, fall time. So
see, I'm interested in that.
Yeah, all right.
Redeem my candy.
You could come up with a lot of stories, right? You've got this buried trash, this old dump that's been covered over. Like what was buried? what was haunted that was buried.
Turns out it was a trash heap from Fraggle Rock.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be awesome.
I've just dated myself.
That's a Gen X reference right there.
Yep. So on that website, they can sign up for the race. They can do it, but is there other ways that they can help out or volunteer?
Yeah. So through the website, you can either, there's a link to the race, and you can either be a participant or you can click the volunteer link. And there's still spots to volunteer for crossing guards. We're looking for a couple photographers for along the course just to take pictures of people as they're running. And there's a few other various parts, volunteer stuff that people can do. And then, of course, if you're listening to this and you can't make it that day, you can't volunteer, you can't participate, but you want to help, donation always. Like I said, we're a 501c3, and so it's all tax deductible, that kind of thing. There's a specific fundraiser on the race website itself that's going to be open through the end of May. And then the redeemmyland.org is always open for donation. Yeah, we'll never turn that away.
Are you doing the same thing on yours? Is there a place that people can go and see what you're doing?
Yeah, you can go to blesscommunity.org and you can catch the most of the info there, or it's Bless White Lake on Facebook and YouTube is where I've got information. So, but yeah, not 501c3 yet, in process. So just hold off on any donations until we get that all together. But I have had donations already to help pay for the booth that I'm going to be in. So that's been collected for most of the people I know online, not people in the community yet. And some people in the community said, "Hey, I want to donate." I'm like, "Oh, let's just wait. I've got the stuff I needed to get started. Let's wait and let's move forward later."
So who online donated to it?
Just people that watch me on Twitch. So, I mean, I could go look at the list of their names, but they're all, streamer names. So I don't really know who exactly gave, but they just heard about what I was doing. And another thing that I have done also, talking about that how do you, help people in need? Well, I did a thing online on my Twitch stream called Pass the Cap. And so, which I got the idea based on going back to one of the first mission trips I went on, and we built houses for people in Juarez, Mexico, across from El Paso, and
which is where I'm from.
Yeah. My buddy Larry, who is an HVAC guy, huge guy. I mean, probably about 6'8", and big giant Carhartt jacket, hard-working guy, steel-toed boots, and we built the house for the family, and the dad took a day off of work so that he could be there at the dedication of the house that they were getting. And they were living in a place that was cardboard, some pallets, some milk, bread trays and stuff like that. That's what the house was they were living in. It was all constructed with that. I was like, this is atrocious. So we built the house for them. He was there, and Larry's like, we need to do more. We gave him the house, but this guy's out here in no jacket. He takes his jacket off. Carhartt jacket, gives it to the guy. I mean, he's like swimming in it, but he gives it to the guy. He takes his boots off, the steel-toed boots, because he found out he worked in one of the factories along the border. He gives him his steel-toed boots. I'm like, they had to be 3 sizes too big for the guy, because the guy was shorter than me. And so he gives them to him, and then he's like, still like, we need to do more. So he took his hat off and he put it in everybody's face, and he didn't move the hat until you put money in there. And when Larry put the hat in front of you, you put money in. Like, okay, let me see what cash I have. And I don't know, we probably collected, or else like Larry's just going to stare you down until you put some cash in. It was probably, I want to say $500 in cash we threw in on top.
Oh, nice.
And then afterwards, it developed into, we would do a collection, but we would buy goods for the family and bring them in and do some other stuff. And so as I was thinking about what to call this and how is it that what we're doing is we're collectively raising funds with people that know each other for someone that one of us knows. And so that's what I'm going to be doing with the person with the vehicle that just broke down. It's a person I know who's online, who's in the UK, but she's in my community, and we're going to pass the cap and try to raise as much as we can. So I think the first time I did it, we probably raised about $500 for a surgery of a kid that this was like their 3rd surgery. They issues when they were born with their heart and that kind of thing. So, 6-year-old kid's got to go have a surgery again. So that means mom and dad are off work. They're caring for kid. They've got all these expenses. we raised funds for that. And it's just been things like that you identify a need in the community that someone has, and you say, let's do what we can to help. Now, I don't believe we'll come up with all the funds that they need to be able to get their vehicle on the road, but the person has some disabilities and it's going to be cheaper to fix the vehicle than buy a new one. There's going to be several $1,000s. But if we got 1,000 of that several, that's still going to be a blessing to them.
Yeah. That's a good way to do it. Yeah. And a lot of people don't, I don't mean to start a whole other conversation, so I won't, but people in traditional church don't understand these ways of reaching out. It feels like, I mean, COVID hit, so everybody went online, started putting their service online, but not a lot of interaction like what you're doing with people. I mean, talking back and forth and interacting, and they're getting to know you, and because they know you, they trust you, and because they trust you, they give. Right. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's a whole other level.
Oh yeah. Well, and the thing is I think people during COVID went and put their services online. I'd been online putting live services on for 10 years before COVID.
Yeah.
So I was already knowing what things were going on online from the standpoint of what most people accuse things of consumers consuming stuff. Whether you're online or you're in the pew, you're a lot of people. We talk about this. 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Well, that means the other 80% are consumers. So all they did was shift from being in person to online. But I was going to say is, so I think a lot of people only made the shift of we weren't online, now we're online, but they hadn't had a background and an understanding of what is online. And I made a different shift because I'd already been online. Yeah. I went from thinking about I'm reaching the people that are already sitting in my pews to I'm reaching the people that will never sit in my pews.
Yeah.
That's the shift I made. And if I'm going to reach the people that are never in my pews, it's not about what I put online on a Sunday morning. It's how do they know they can reach out to me on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday when life is awful? Because, most people, no matter, unless they're going to the hospital or somebody died, they're not calling their pastor up and saying, I had an awful day at work and I'm yelling at the kids and I need someone to talk to. They don't do that. I wish they did. But on one level I do because they need to. On the other, I don't have capacity if everyone did that, So there's I wish they would. But when they send me a text message or a message of some other kind, I can spend time with them if I have access at that moment to do it. And if I don't, I can do it later. Just the back and forth. We're in relationship, we're connecting, and whatever is going on in their life, they know someone cares.
How often do you go live?
Currently I go live on Twitch Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
What time?
I am on at a little bit before 8 o'clock in the morning till usually around 10 o'clock. Sometimes I go till 11. And most of the time I spend reading in the Bible.
That's Flatcap Dapper Pastor.
Flatcap Dapper Pastor on Twitch, yes.
Okay. All right. Let's see who this triggers. I just have one last thing. I went to the Global Association of Church Multiplication, JCX, in Dallas last year. And I was in one of the talks that they had, and they were talking about not just online and things that you're doing like that, but more in the meta verse, right? VR kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And there is this pastor who goes on there. So Sunday morning he has church, normal, whatever. Sunday afternoon, he goes in there and he set himself up in those communities. He set himself up where he's literally a street preacher avatar in there. Yeah. And he winds up meeting people in there. They've done baptism in the metaverse. Yes. Like the just fake like water.
Second Life or whatever it is.
No, I don't know which one it was. Okay. It was like, so there's a few different ones, right? But like they even showed some footage of the little avatars getting dunked into the water. I don't even know how you program that or you do that. But then he's built a whole little thing there, and it led to him meeting several people who figured out that they were in the same town, and now they go to his church, and now they're like good friends. And it's an interesting thing. Like it's a lot of people can't handle that things go that way.
Yeah. Oh man.
You're the only one that's still pastoring the church at this moment. How do you feel about that?
You know, I think you do what you got to do to connect how you can. Like, so for instance, during COVID, you know, we were meeting online, but you know, so it limited a lot of stuff we could do. And we actually brought in members to the church who started watching online and discovered us that way and said, "Hey, I like your church. We're in the same town. We'd like to become members. Will you baptize me? Will you baptize my kids?" Mm-hmm. And we had a situation where there was a young man who parents wanted him to be baptized, and he was extremely autistic. Very far on the spectrum where touching in water, just no go. But he was okay if you squirted him with a squirt bottle. Yep, and not even kidding. And the way that our church tradition is, you know, when you do that, there has to be witnesses, you know, an elder of some sort, you know, not just me. And so one of our oldest elders, who was maybe one of the most resistant to going online and not being in person and going through everything, he volunteered to say, "Hey, I'll zoom in if you want to do it there with the squirt gun. I'll be on a Zoom call and be a witness that way." And so here it was. I was in their house, and you know, and I've got a squirt bottle. I've never baptized anyone by squirt bottle before, but I'm like, you know what?
Check the book of church order really quickly.
Just to make sure.
You know, I know. You know, in our tradition, it can be sprinkle, it can be immersion, it can be pouring. Squirt bottle, we'll just write it in there. It's fine. Mm-hmm. And then I've got an elder on Zoom, and I'm like, you know, this is kind of beautiful. Yes. Because we're doing what we can, and we're meeting people where they are, and you know, and since then, you know, the world has changed, and that family is in our church, and they're doing things the normal way, quote unquote. But you know, if like an avatar is the introduction, and if that's how people meet and connect, and then it moves from there to more in real life, if they're able to, maybe they're not able to. What if someone was what if someone was a quadriplegic and not able to leave their house or whatever, but they can interact more fully in there's that
also social anxieties and other things that keep people from coming in the church. So we do have quite a few barriers that we haven't been aware of from the standpoint of, well, we need to address it. Well, we can't see the person who has the problem, so then we don't address it until we have someone among us, and then we might. So if you had someone with a disability come to the church and you realize, oh, we need a ramp, you'd build one. But what do you do for the person that has social anxiety? Yeah, they won't come to your church.
Yeah, I think however we use technology or any adaptation that we use, if it's something that helps bring them closer to relationship and closer to Christ, I think we explore that. If it's a way to avoid relationship or avoid, something, and I push back on that. But if it's a tool that helps us to engage with people more, I'm for it.
Well, Paul used the latest technology of the day. He used the Roman roads, and he used writing. I mean, writing letters would have been the tech of the day. We don't think about that.
Sure.
But how many people were literate? He had to have a scribe. We didn't have to. I mean, he says he could write with his own hand, but a scribe would have been more skilled at it. That's why he uses a scribe all the time. He's using all of the things of the day. And just to bring and jump that forward, on one level, I mean, I could go into conversations about meta. I know several different churches and pastors that could do that, but I don't want to just do that. I want to think about this thought. The 5-year-old today will never know a world where digital is not part of their life.
Yep.
If, as the church, we neglect that 5-year-old's spiritual connection in the digital space, why will they come to a physical space?
Yeah. I mean, it's true. Like in our generation, we got to see, okay, now computers came into play, and now all these things. And
yeah, we're the last generation that knows what it wasn't.
Yeah, I look at, like, my daughter's 9, and she'll play Roblox, and she'll with her cousins, and they'll like put a FaceTime thing so they're able to talk to each other. Plus, they'll play. They talk about so many different things, and it's interesting to listen to. And I'm like, what if she was trained to share the gospel this way? But wouldn't that be cool? Because she's constantly talking to whoever, right? Like we limit it so it's just her cousins. But as she gets older, and she's able to have those.
Oh, it'll be natural for her.
Yeah.
It would be really odd for her to segregate her digital life from her spiritual life, that only spiritual can be in physical space. You can't do it digitally. It would be so weird. I don't even know you could explain it to her.
Right. Well, we have to be careful of not being like those Christians back then, where the TV was the devil's box.
Well,
and now, and of course, yeah. Anyway,
well, you know what? Every technology has had the group of people resistant to it. The piano started out in the bar hall. We can't have that in the church. The organ started out in the bar hall. We can't have it in the church. How many people now are like, we can't not have it. Have it in the church. So. Who knows what the next thing is going to be? I mean, I like your approach, David, about, is this something that is going to be beneficial to people in bring them closer to Christ, bring them closer in their walk with God? Then I'm going to use it, and I'll figure out how we use it well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just living into being all things to all people.
Oh,
yeah,
Yeah.
So, bless my community, bless White Lake.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Facebook, all that kind of stuff. So you're going to be there Mother's Day?
Yeah, Mother's Day weekend. I get to open up. I think that's the 10th on Saturday. The 11th is the Sunday. The other thing with that too, when I went to go do that, was the fact that it's from 9 to 2. So they just expanded the artisan market. It used to be just on Saturdays. This year going to be on Sundays as well. I got really excited about that, because then I knew for sure I would have people who weren't going to be in church on Sunday that would be walking by, they have a conversation with us like, no, I'm not trying to get you to church. I just want to love on you. I just want to bless you. I want you to have a better day after having a conversation with me, whether I pray for you or not, than you had before. And then you can go on your way and help other people to kind of do that same thing.
Yeah.
So that also then means I'm not working in the church right now, and I can't, because unless there's a church listening out there that just needs, a disciple guy during the week and no appearance on Saturday and Sunday, I don't know where I'm going to go. I'm just trusting God, because this is a great adventure that he has me on right now, where it's the most exhilarating thing I've ever done, and it's the most terrifying thing I've ever done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, gosh. And Redeem My Land, redeemmiland.org, right?
You got it.
Anything else you want to add?
No.
That we haven't already talked about?
No. I think we've covered it all. Just, I guess if anyone listening out there wants to know more, my contact info is definitely through the web. Reach out. I love coffee and sitting down, and we can either talk in the digital space or in the real space.
Yeah. All right. And one final question. Who are you voting for? Just kidding. Just kidding. No. Thank you guys for coming on ReDiscover People. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks.